Somebody watching the YouTube now, if you could text me or anybody in chambers to let us know if it is now working. I'll just keep speaking until somebody gives me an affirmative that we have sound now. This is sound check. All right, we're good. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Tracy Lerman. Good evening. My name is Tracy Lerman. I live at 43 Crane Street in Kingston. I'm a resident of the city, a mom of a 5-year-old, a practicing Jew, and I'm here today to call upon you all as people of conscience to pass a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Although I have a deep critique of Zionism and especially the very racist government currently in power in Israel, I also have strong ties to the land and people of Israel. I've lived there and I have many beloved family members by marriage who currently live there. My father-in-law is Israeli and his entire family, which includes 5 siblings and dozens of cousins and children of those cousins, currently live there. So I was obviously very scared and concerned for their safety after the attacks on October 7th, and I'm constantly concerned for their safety and well-being. But I'm here at this meeting because I cannot stand by as a Jew whose morality and sense of social justice has been informed by my Judaism, and as a mom, and watch the massacre of more than 20,000 people, the majority of whom are children, and the humanitarian crisis of many millions of more. We need to find another way. As a Jew, I don't see the difference between killing Palestinian civilians and killing Israeli civilians. It's all horrible to me. And as a mom, I'm deeply traumatized when I hear how devastating this genocide has been on children. I look at pictures or videos of those children and see my own daughter. I don't know what parent wouldn't. Passing a resolution demanding a ceasefire now is critical. We need to hold Israel accountable for its actions against Gaza. I hope you will all use your collective power as officers of the state and stand on the just side of history and pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Norman Lowry.
Hello. My name is Norman Lowry. I'm here to speak in favor of the Ceasefire Now resolution. I live at 51 Fairview Avenue here in Kingston with my daughter and 2 toddler grandchildren in the First Ward. I'm a retired professor of music, nearing age 80, a registered conscientious objector, long opposed to war and militarization of any kind. In accordance with this, I strongly condemn global white supremacy, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Blackness, anti-indigeneity, and any form of injustice and inequity. Given the over 22,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza, including 10,000 children, and up to 1.9 million displaced, with many more who will die from disease and starvation, I have been made acutely aware as a grandfather of what it must be like to be a child or have a family in Gaza. It cuts me to the heart, to the core of my being. I am also aware of how the status quo of funding and escalating war and genocide with our tax dollars makes it so much harder to provide universal housing, education, and health care to our own community. I close with a quote from Liv Kunins-Berkowitz, the media coordinator for Jewish Voice for Peace. She writes, "We want our legislators to take a stand on the side of
30
peace,
seconds.
on the side of justice, and on the side of humanity. Right now, Israel is waging a genocidal campaign in Gaza, and we need all people of conscience to speak up, to put an end to this horrifying moment of history." Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sam Goldberg.
Hello, my name's Sam Goldberg. I live here in Kingston, New York. And I'm here to ask you to support the resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in occupied Palestine. Nothing can justify the violence that the civilian population of Gaza is being subjected to. It is unambiguously genocide and an ethnic cleansing. More than 23,000 Palestinians have been killed by the IDF. That amounts to around 1 in 100 people in Gaza. Israel is a state that was founded on the displacement and theft of land, and so that is what continues to be the goal there now. This part of this issue is not particularly complicated. I am Jewish. My grandparents came to this country at the turn of the 20th century to escape anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish pogroms in the Russian Pale settlement. And I wanted to share with you, there's a picture on my parents' mantle from 1931 of my maternal grandparents, Harry and Lily Fryman, standing with the rest of the Fryman family when they were able to go visit Riga, Latvia at that time. So all the members of that family who are in that picture were annihilated in the Holocaust. They're dead. This is a story that basically every other Jewish person will have some version of. As Jews, we've been refugees, we've been displaced people, stateless people, we've been the victims of discrimination and white supremacist terrorism, we've been ghettoized, and we have been the victims of ethnic cleansings and genocides. Zionism is, and will be only one strain of Jewish thought. It's important that you understand this. There have always been Jews who did not support Zionism, and to me, as a Jew, it simply doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to build an exclusionary state using the tools that were used to oppress and murder and annihilate us throughout history. So instead, Jews like me and myself, what I learned from that history and my own Jewishness is that it's my responsibility to use the privileges that I have while I have them, because they may well be taken away, they have been many times, to stand and identify with people who are oppressed and marginalized, with people who are displaced, with all people who have experienced similar things, not simply out of empathy, but because that's what's in my best interest, according to my own history as a group. And so I would ask you that if you support Jews, if you are against anti-Semitism, to join us in calling for the basic human rights and the liberation of the Palestinian people, because we share a common struggle.
Thank you.
So please support the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Chelsea Valaba.
My name is Chelsea Vialba. I live at 5 Millers Lane. I want to express my deepest condolences to the community and the families who lost 2 Kingston students yesterday in a tragic vehicular incident, as well as the pedestrian who was killed by a vehicle in the city of this past Friday. Every life cut short is painful to so many and forever impacts entire communities. It especially hurts when it is our children that leave us far too early. Council, a somber welcome to your terms. Some of you were here last month when dozens of community members came to express solidarity with Palestinians. As a community and political social worker, I too would have been present had I not received the scariest text of my life that morning. That day, my 11-year-old brother messaged the family chat, "There is a code red at my school. There's police with guns everywhere. They said someone with a gun is on campus." The 2 hours I spent waiting to hear that my brother was safe were easily some of the worst in my life. It reminded me of when my sister, then in high school, texted me that she ran and hid at a football game because someone pulled out a weapon. These memories will haunt me and my siblings forever, even in our unguaranteed safety. Once I knew my brother was safe, I sobbed, empathizing with Palestinians who cannot say the same about their loved ones. I must ask, at what point do we as a society, as a government, at any level, deem life to be sacred? When do we realize that the US is fomenting a third world war? When do we stop the civil war that makes our schools, our houses of worship, grocery stores, and residential homes battlefields? When do we, with our actions, prove our love for our children, all of our children, regardless of religion, country of birth, ability, or family income status? Almost 10,000 Palestinian children have been killed. For context, the City of Kingston School District has 6,000. I understand that some may ask, what does this have to do with Kingston? Everything. Last month, this body declared a Ukrainian city its sister city due to the aid efforts of Kingston residents. Gaza does not have the luxury of receiving aid because it is blockaded. All we can do here is pass a piece of paper that makes official our dissent to electeds that have turned away from the will of the people. Hundreds in here, in this community, have expressed their brokenheartedness using their freedom of speech. I personally cannot eat or sleep in peace knowing that the little money we make is taxed to fund military violence against innocents. This takes a physical, mental, and emotional toll on all of us who are barely surviving an ongoing pandemic, increasing houselessness, and food apartheid and insecurity. This body has already been responsible for the genocide of Native children and their families. Please, I urge you, for the sake of our humanity, for the hope of a less torturous world, pass this ceasefire resolution when it is before you.
Thank you.
It is
Time
quite
is up.
literally the least you can do.
Next speaker, please.
Jasmine Atala.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Atala, and I'm from Kingston, Ward 8, and I live at 52 Lindsley Avenue. I'm an Egyptian American, and I've lived in Kingston for 15 years. I've owned a business in Ulster County for 7 years, and my 5-year-old son is a fifth-generation Kingstonian. For the last 90 days, I felt sick every morning knowing that my tax dollars are funding the genocide of the Palestinian people. I'm sure you're aware of the statistics, but I wanted to give you a quick reminder. 1 child is killed by Israel every 10 minutes. Since October 7th, more than 1,000 children have had one or both legs amputated, often without anesthesia, because of the brutal siege. Israel will not allow medical aid nor food to cross through the border at a pace that is sustainable, so they are on the brink of famine. Children are now dying from hunger, dehydration, and preventable illnesses because of the lack of clean water and medical supplies. I unfortunately don't have all of the time to list all of the war crimes Israel has committed since October 7th, but a quick overview is as follows. Genocide, although right now that is just an accusation, but the ICJ will be the decider of that in a couple of days. The use of white phosphorus, collective punishment, forcible displacement, desecration and mutilation of corpses, destruction of cultural property, withholding medical supplies and humanitarian aid. This is what you stand in solidarity with if you refuse to call for a ceasefire. The justification I hear is we need to make sure October 7th never happens again. And to that I say October 7th would have never happened had the people of Gaza not lived under a brutal and violent occupation. An occupation that often refused their ability to receive medical treatment, an occupation that controlled their air, land, and sea, an occupation that took thousands of people, including children, as prisoners without charges or trial, an occupation that treated them as less than human and had them living in what is now commonly referred to as an open-air prison. I implore you to consider the political but also personal ramifications of not speaking out against this ethnic cleansing and genocide that is backed and funded by the US. Based on the most recent statistics I've seen, which are now probably over a month old, the overwhelming majority of this country wants a ceasefire. Every day that a ceasefire is not called is another day that we the people become more disillusioned by the idea of Western freedom and democracy. Please pass the resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Adam Lipsky.
Hello, my name is Adam Lipsky. I live at 613 Plutarch Road.
Can you, I'm sorry, sir, can you just lift the mic up a little bit? Thank you.
My name is Adam Lipsky. I live at 613 Plutarch Road. I'm a small business owner, and I've done a lot of my business in Kingston for many years now, and I care deeply about the community here. I'm here tonight to implore this body to pass the resolution put forth by Alderwoman Hirsch supporting a ceasefire in Gaza and an end to tax dollars funding the Israeli onslaught. As our national representatives continue to fail us, our local political bodies have the greatest power to give our voice to our moral compass. I come from a long line of committed Zionist Jews. Growing up, I learned why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was the Palestinians' fault. Later, I learned why both sides were at fault, and it was just a mutual wheel of violence that there was no off-ramp for. But now I see that things have radically changed. As bad as the conflict has been in the past, as American Jews and as Americans, that the Rubicon has been crossed. Many war crimes don't fit the requirement of being a genocide, as defined by the Genocide Convention of 1948. The case that South Africa has brought to the International Court of Justice presents vast amounts of evidence documenting the intent of Israeli government officials have to commit genocide against the Palestinians. The Israeli government is claiming that Gaza, where half the population are children, is made up of 2 million Nazis. Is there anyone in this room who believes that? If anyone feels like they cannot support a resolution for a ceasefire, that it's too difficult or complicated politically, we need to go back and see our minister, our rabbi, and we need to think about the basic principles of human rights and decency. This is greater than town politics, greater than city, county, state, or national politics. What do I tell my 2-year-old son that I did? What do you tell your grandchildren and great-grandchildren that you did? The failure to pass this resolution in Kingston will lump the people of Kingston all in with the silent majority, claiming to be helpless while they watch a people be exterminated. Never again for anyone.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Grace Nevin.
Hello. Thank you for taking the time to consider the voices of Kingston tonight. I'm Grace. I'm a full-time Kingston resident, a homeowner, and I proudly send my child to public school here. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the town's recent tragic losses of life on the roads and name that we are a town currently in mourning on multiple fronts. How can anyone in good conscience demand the violence against Palestine continue? The argument against a ceasefire demands that the over 22,000 deaths in 95 days are not enough deaths, tragically half of those deaths being of children. The argument against a ceasefire is an argument demanding that the over 50,000 pregnant women currently in Palestine should continue gestating and birthing without any maternity care, without access to food, running water, or antiseptic, without access to blood transfusions, C-sections, or anesthetics. As a birth and postpartum doula, maternity care is sacred to me, as it should be to all of us, despite how we've been politically indoctrinated. I can't help but note that the ethno-state of Israel has been summoned to appear at The Hague later this week regarding the genocide of Palestine, with over 7 decades of evidence to reference. While our Kingston vote for a ceasefire may be less weighty than that of the International Court of Justice, our vote is our town's pivotal opportunity to have our stance for peace and safety be officially proclaimed. The Kingston residents who are calling for a ceasefire for Palestine are your beloved community members. We represent multiple religious faiths, political parties, racial identities, and professions. We denounce anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, and bigotry in all of its many tricky forms. We are not radicals because it is not radical to call for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mia Anoya. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mia Inoue, and I live at 318 Hasbrook Ave in Kingston. I'm also a professor of politics at Bard College. What's happening in Gaza is, according to the definition set forth by the 2002 Rome Statute, a genocide. It is an attempt to destroy, in whole or in part, an entire people, the Palestinian people. We know this from the explicit statements of numerous Israeli officials. We also know this from the fact that Israel has targeted hospitals, water tanks, solar panels, journalists, schools, neighborhoods, and aid and UN workers. It has cut off the flow of food, water, and fuel to the civilian population of Gaza, and it has indiscriminately killed Palestinians, as evidenced by the fact that nearly half of the over 23,000 Palestinians that have been killed in the last 3 months have been children. It's easy for numbers to become abstractions, but 23,000 is almost exactly the population of Kingston. Can you imagine if in the last 3 months we had lost not 2 of our neighbors, but all of them? My workplace, Bard College, has a campus in the West Bank. On a Zoom call in October, one of our colleagues there told us that he cannot look at his 2-year-old daughter without seeing a collection of body parts. It might seem strange for a municipal government to vote on a matter of foreign policy, but you all have a crucial role to play in this terrible moment. Polls since October have shown that a majority of Americans, including a majority of Democrats and Republicans, support a ceasefire. The majority of Americans know that destroying Gaza does nothing to keep Palestinians, Israelis, or Americans safe. And yet none of our elected officials at the federal level, including Pat Ryan, Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, or Joe Biden, have called for a ceasefire. This weekend, many of our elected officials attended Defend Democracy rallies across the state.
30 seconds.
Democracy is a beautiful ideal and one that we must defend from those who attack it. But how can our leaders meaningfully do that while sending our public money to Israel to fund a genocide that the American people overwhelmingly do not support? Please do your part, along with city councils in Albany, in Bridgeport, in Providence, to make this country more democratic. Please represent the people of Kingston who stand for peace and safety.
Thank you.
By voting in favor of the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Justin Orsham.
Hello, folks. I'm Justin Orsham. I live in Ward 5 here in Kingston, and I've lived in Kingston for about 8 years now. I'm one of the many constituents here tonight and beyond calling for immediate ceasefire in Palestine. We come here with peace on our hearts, moving with love and seeking an end to cycles of violence. We call for your support in approving the resolution for an immediate permanent ceasefire in Palestine, end to funding to the war and the massacre of the Palestinian peoples, $350,000 of which is being collected from our federal tax money in Kingston, release of all hostages, among other requests. Albany Common Council just passed its own ceasefire resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, supply of humanitarian aid, and the release of all hostages and detainees. Reiterating the loss, we've lost over 23,000 Palestinians killed. That's over one for every 100 Palestinians, 11,000 of which are children, 59,000 wounded, millions displaced, and in continued fear for their daily safety. We say no more. We ask for you to say no more. We condemn all Islamophobia, all anti-Semitism, anti-Blackness, and white supremacy in all of its forms. For those of us who have a degree of privilege, of safety, of security, I'm speaking from my own experience here too, I know that we work to steel ourselves from feeling this suffering in these moments, to keep our own peace, our own equilibrium. We must do all that we can in these moments to break down these walls we place around our hearts, to avoid feeling the suffering of Palestinian peoples in this moment, because those walls entrench us from feeling the same suffering of all peoples, including those in our own communities. The same loss of our Kingston community members to displacement, to violence, to food insecurity, to housing insecurity, the list goes on. All of our struggles are interconnected. We must all have the courage to stand up to end all cycles of violence in this moment so we can end all cycles of violence in every moment. Ceasefire now.
Council members, we've reached the 30 minutes. Can I have a motion to extend for another 30 minutes? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Michael Tierney. All in favor? Opposed? We have another 30 minutes allotted for public speaking. Next speaker, please.
Bill Erner.
Good evening, members of the Common Council. Happy to be here with you following the end of my term in the county legislature. Some of you may have seen the letter that I wrote and 3 of my colleagues had signed that would correspond to item 17 on your agenda, the memorializing letter for a ceasefire in Israel-Palestine. I actually want to thank a member of this council who had urged me to work on that in the legislature after this started becoming a thing in municipalities around the country. I only have a little to add to what we've already heard. One thing that I didn't say in that letter is that I am a Jew. So I'm coming at this as an American, US American Jew. And I see that you've added many admirable things to what you're contemplating for next month in this resolution, including acknowledging the historic role of displacing and slaughtering the original inhabitants of this land and the settler colonial history here. I think we can, if we can talk about that, then we can take steps to transform our future in meaningful ways and never do anything like that again and repair what we've done. There is so much need in our community here in the city of Kingston, as you know. There's so much need in Ulster County, which I hope that I faithfully represented on behalf of city residents for 2 years. And then beyond, but we need to think beyond borders. We're human beings. We all have basic things that we need and want, and the people of Gaza simply are being deprived of those things right now by a murderous regime that leads the Israeli government. And certainly the very least we can do is to withdraw our support for that as U.S. Americans with our tax dollars, with our resources, with the workers who are manufacturing weapons, who are starting to get it, and if they didn't already, and not load up supply vehicles to go to the region. And there's so much more that we can do. And
30 seconds.
Thank you. We have the power to stop the slaughter that has been going on for 3/4 of a century. The disproportionality is just stunning. And, you know, just for the record, I've been at demonstrations to support survivors of the Hamas atrocities and also the Israeli Defense Force atrocities. And I don't think anybody should be defending any of these atrocities. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to state again, because I've received a couple text messages from folks on Zoom, we're going to go through the list of folks on Chambers who signed up, and then we'll open it up to Zoom speakers. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael Kudransky.
Hi, good evening. Michael Kudransky, Ward 7. I've come here today to talk to you about operationalization of the form-based code, which was passed in 2023 with the intent of fostering a more walkable city of Kingston. And one of the public comments that were made during the comment portion was around the loophole that may exist around minor site plans. And so now, as the code is moving into being operationalized, we find a parcel at 365 South Wall Street, which has a maximum of 5 parking spaces that are allowed. And in fact, the developer is asking to expand that to 13 parking spaces at the expense of the walkable right-of-way, which is alongside the Empire State Trail, is at the 5 corners in the city of Kingston, and is an intersection that connects a number of neighborhoods. So I'm asking for the council to scrutinize the waivers that are being considered for that parcel, because the intent of the code was to foster walkability. And the council, as I understand, is also looking into the 2030 Climate Action Plan, which states that 40% of climate emissions in the city of Kingston come from transportation. Every parking space, every drive-through is counter to that. So I just ask that this body please scrutinize what's happening with that parcel as it looks to operationalize the form-based code. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark Klein.
Hi, I'm Mark Klein. I'm from Highland, New York, and I'm an American Jew. My father.
Can you just move the mic up a little bit, a little harder to hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I got a bit of a hoarse voice. So.
Oh.
My father had to deal with the Nazis, and for 40 years it took him time to calm down, because whenever he heard one of their voices, I would see his head turn. My mother-in-law had to hide in a chicken coop while her mother was dragged away to a concentration camp known as Auschwitz. She was hid in a chicken coop, and her father grabbed her and put her in a nunnery, and thank God the Catholic Church actually saved her life. But I see a lot of things happening in the world, and I see a lot of things happening here, including anti-Semitism, and it's really taken off after October 7th. Before October 7th, there was peace, and this was broken. Paramilitary people came down, broke through fences, came in hang gliders with machine guns and slaughtered people with machine guns. This was a peace rally that some of these people would probably be at, and they were just absolutely murdered in cold blood, just machine gunned down. Women were held down and raped, and they were held down by 2 people sometimes. And God forbid if the woman screamed out, they would stab her. I mean, this is barbaric. You know, where are some of these movements? Is it Me Too, but not if you're a Jew? We're defending ourselves in Israel. Israel is doing what they have to do, that they always have to do, and we continually get attacked, constantly. There was a German woman. She was part of this event. They grabbed her, pulled her away, raped her, killed her, and dragged her body around in a pickup truck in Gaza, and people spit on her body. And none of them said this is wrong. None of them said stop this. Israel is defending themselves against this horrible thing, against Hamas and what's actually happening right now. Babies were killed. They were pulled out of their houses. They were decapitated, about 40 babies. And it's very important, the Jewish religion, to be buried. And they couldn't put the babies' heads to match them with bodies. I mean, this is so sick, so barbaric how Israel was attacked. And Israel is defending itself. And they have to do it. And if you look at what's
30
happening...
seconds.
Pardon?
30 seconds.
And if you look at what's happening, and look what's happening in the press. I have an example of an AP CNN reporter being kissed by the Hamas leader right here. He was fired. But this is what's happening in the press, and we're not hearing anything about the Hamas terrorists being killed. But this is what's happening. Vote down this resolution, allow Israel to defend herself and the rest of the Jews throughout the world. Thank you so much.
Just a reminder to allow every speaker to have their moment. Thank you. We hear whispers travel well in this room. Next speaker, please.
Alejandro Velasquez.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Good evening, everybody. So this is the first time I'm coming here to speak. I didn't prepare, like a lot of people brought something. I wanted to speak from my heart. I moved to this community about 10 years ago or so. I used to work at the United Nations, and I saw a lot. I've grown up with the United Nations. I've traveled throughout the world. I've seen many different things in my life. Lived in Africa for many years, lived in Italy for a while. And I'm giving you the context of my life to tell you that in the latter part of my life, I've turned up to come and establish myself, put some roots in this area, leaving the city life to come and figure out life with people that I want to be able to relate to. I want to be able to relate to everyday people from the United States, working class people, which I see a lot of them in this part that I didn't see so much. Let's say blue collar, right? I didn't see that much working at the United Nations. It was a different level of society that I was surrounded by. Anyway, that's giving you context. I lived in South Africa for a little bit, and in Namibia, which used to be part of South Africa. I experienced the latter part of apartheid down there. And even though I have not been to Gaza or the West Bank, the things that I experienced down there, witnessing what was done to the black people in South Africa, and witnessing the stuff that I see through different media sources here in the United States and those from abroad, I also see that what happened in South Africa was child's play in comparison to what's happening in Gaza. So that's that part of the story. The other part of the story is that I came here. I wasn't born in the United States. I was born in Colombia. I left Colombia because there was a time in Colombia when the narco traffickants was, in the 80s, 90s was a big problem down there. And I left because my grandmother was killed, my stepfather was killed, my brother was killed from violence, from narco traffickants and paramilitary. So I come from a place where I understand what it's like to feel these kind of tumultuous sort of feelings, let's say, of terror. But I came to this country feeling that,
30 seconds.
that I could be in a place that could make the world a better place. And I've realized that there's a lot of stories here that just don't add up to the things that relate to the values of freedom and just respecting one another. And I urge you people to push for a ceasefire in Gaza and the West Bank. And, you know, we all need to figure a way that we can make this country moral and ethical by supporting
Thank you. Your
things
time is up. Thank you.
that have to do with life. Anyway, thank you.
That is all we have signed up. We're going to go over to Zoom and take anybody from Zoom, and then I'll open up the floor again here in chambers. So if anybody on Zoom wants to speak, raise your Zoom hand and then keep it up so that our clerk has time to notice you. Thank you. First speaker, please, or next speaker.
Harv Hilowitz.
Yes, thank you, chamber members. I'm the chair of the Israel Advocacy Committee of the Jewish Federation of Ulster County. We are a civic organization representing 12 synagogues, having over 1,500 congregational members. And the Federation of Ulster County clearly and strongly wants you to reject this vacuous resolution. Israel was attacked on October 7th in a premeditated murder and hostage raid, which absolutely requires a muscular national response, as any nation would do, including the complete destruction of the terrorist organization that planned and carried out this pogrom, and which is the official government of unoccupied Gaza. My question is, are the people of Gaza better off now than they were on October 6th? I don't think so, and nobody else does. Israel has the absolute right of self-defense against all enemies, including enemies such as the US, the UN, and the EU designated terrorist Hamas entity, which in its official charter has the destruction of Israel and Jews worldwide as its part of its core goal. Members of the Jewish Federation of Ulster County take no pleasure in the humanitarian crisis in Gaza that was clearly precipitated by the government of Hamas's attack on October 7th. And I would like to remind the Common Council that only when all the remaining hostages and the bodies of the hostages murdered by Hamas are returned to Israel, and when Hamas and its infrastructure are destroyed, can there be a lasting peace, which everybody wants. The ceasefire resolution in the Common Council has no capacity to enact such an international decree except to further inflame local tensions in the community, just like what happened at Pat Ryan's office last week. And it would seem to indicate that the council sides with Hamas terror. And Hamas is in league with Iran and its territorial proxies in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, which are currently attacking American armed forces and international shipping right now. The ceasefire resolution as it's now written is factually inaccurate and intellectually lazy. It's filled with anti-Israel and anti-Semitic tropes that are easily refuted, and we ask that the resolution be killed in committee. Therefore, the Federation has every expectation that the Common Council's Law and Rules Committee will see fit to kill this affrontive resolution in committee. And if it's brought to the full council, to drive it down there. So I want to thank you for letting me talk, and Yisrael Chai.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Pat Pelicano.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, yeah, my name is Pat. I live in Ward 2 now. And yeah, I won't be able to speak as eloquently as some other folks that have already been up tonight. And by that, I mean, I support the ceasefire resolution. You know, as my neighbors have said, you know, 22, you know, but the numbers say between 22 and 30,000 people are dead, or have been killed rather, from the occupation forces. And so it's, just wild to think that we have no power, especially as elected representatives. In our municipal government, as one of my neighbors had mentioned earlier, it does feel kind of strange to speak about international policies from our common council in Kingston, but we're all humans, we're all people, and this resolution is just, it's a simple act to show that you have a conscience, and it's just trying to establish that we see other people as being important, because we're bearing witness on our telephone screens to, some pretty unimaginable horrors that I won't describe in detail, because that feels pretty absurd to do and subject a chamber to. And because we everyone can read these reports, and read what's factual, right? We're not repeating things that have already been debunked, because we live in a time of hypercritique where we can find out that certain claims are just a bunch of BS. And yeah, so I just urge the Common Council to, use whatever power you have to just support this very simple piece of legislation, or resolution rather. And yeah, just side with your conscience, and appreciate your work. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Meryl Schluterer.
Yes, hello.
Hi, we could hear you. You're all set.
Thank you. I'd like to come at this from a different angle. It's been a long time since I've taken a civics course, but I don't think a city council has any standing on an issue that's an international, global issue that is so polarizing to our little community that is likely to tear us apart. Why would the city of Kingston has a lot of other work to do? I know the potholes are being filled in right now by snow, but we have a lot going on in the city of Kingston. I don't think it's up to the council or the city of Kingston to make such a resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark Goikman.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Mark. You're good.
Hi. I want to reiterate everything that Harv Hilowitz had said. I think he made some great points and he was very eloquent. I want to point out two things. Nobody wants continuation of violence. Everybody I've ever spoken to is in favor of a ceasefire, but not an unconditional ceasefire. The ceasefire is easy. There was a ceasefire on October 6th. Hamas broke it. They broke the ceasefire. And there can be a ceasefire as soon as Hamas surrenders. It's very easy. And if Hamas cared about its people and wanted the violence to stop, all they have to do is surrender. That's all they have to do. On December 7th, 1941, the United States was attacked at Pearl Harbor. 2,700 people died. And the United States' response was to tear the world apart until Japan surrendered. After the war, Japan did very well. Same thing with Germany and Italy. There was no hard feelings. The aggressors were defeated, but they didn't fight until every last German and Japanese and Italian were killed. Hamas hiding behind their civilian population is a war crime. Fighting Hamas is not a war crime. There is no genocide going on. A genocide is an extermination of people. The civilian population of the Palestinian people has exploded in the last 50 years, and it continues to rise. There is no genocide. War is horrible. people die. Kids died in the Civil War. Kids died in the World War I. Kids died in World War II. Kids died in Vietnam War. Kids died all the time in war. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And to end that, all Hamas has to do is to surrender. All they have to do is step from behind their population. Step from behind them and stand in front of them. Let Hamas stand in front of their population and surrender. The war is over. There's nothing that will embolden more terrorism than a ceasefire.
30 seconds.
Yes, an unconditional ceasefire just gives the aggressor more ammunition to do it again and again and again. If someone steals my car and the worst thing they have to do is give it back, they'll keep stealing my car. There has to be consequences. The war should stop. Hamas should surrender. We should all be in favor of a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And again, if you can't keep it down, we'll ask that you to leave. Every speaker gets their 3 minutes. Thank you.
Cheryl? There's no last name.
Hi, this is Cheryl Schneider. I live in Bloomington, New York. I've lived in this community for decades. I'm also a Jew. I'm also a practicing Jew in a congregation in this community here in Ulster County. And I can tell you that the gentleman speaking, representing us, doesn't speak for us. I can also say that Lo Yisagai El Gai Harav Lo Yimiladu Od Milchama, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, nor shall they teach war anymore. There's a big difference between self-defense and genocide. A vast, vast world of difference. I don't know how much more I can say, but I think that one, this is not a court of law. We're not passing legislation. This is a memorializing resolution, and this body has passed memorializing resolutions that touch life outside the scope of Kingston many times before. Our Jewish community is already divided. Kingston community is already divided. I think this is a healing act, asking for a stop to the genocide and a ceasefire. I think people should, Madam President, I ask that the council members really read those words. I did not see an anti-Semitic trope in it. But you know what a big anti-Semitic Zionism is not Judaism. No war, no more. Stop the violence. Thank you so much.
Yeah. That is all we have raised hands through Zoom. Is anybody else in chambers who wishes to speak? Just raise your hands and I'll, Tanya, I saw, Tanya, you want to come up first and then.
Hi, Tanya Garment, 102 Ward Street. I am here to speak about the 365 South Wall Street development. We've got our new form-based code that was adopted in August, and a big intent of the code is to restore walkability to Kingston, the ability to use the public realm and to think, it's a big step in thinking about transportation beyond the car. This parcel, the last uses all used the public realm as a parking lot. In fact, there are some other parcels near there that infringe on the public right-of-way. Stewart's is one example. This parcel is on, the last month that the Laws and Rules Committee discussed the idea of putting an easement to allow the future occupants to use the public right-of-way as parking. And it was not discussed in that meeting. It had not yet been brought to light that their property falls under, that what they're doing with the property is a change of use, which triggers the parking requirements. The parking requirements are when people think about parking requirements, they think of minimum parking standards, minimum parking off-site, minimum on-site parking requirements, meaning you have to have this much parking for this use. We don't have that, thankfully, anymore in Kingston, but we do have requirements for what a parking lot should be. And that includes one curb cut per lot, so you're not ruining the sidewalk, you're just having one way. They can get a minor waiver for that. And it also includes maximum parking of 5 spots. They're wanting to put 13 spots. They need a major waiver for that. A week after the Common Council meeting, I called Planning Department and informed this of them. They appear to have completely just not acknowledged that, but they had the applicant put in applications the next day. And that will be before the Planning Board this month. I worry that now that the Common Council has not shown any resistance to it so far, and it's gone to the Planning Board, which is going to be before the Laws and Rules meeting, and the planning administrator has not indicated to the applicant that we are looking at making a less car-centric Kingston, that the Planning Board will approve this waiver. And so 13 spots are not appropriate on that parcel. This is a context for local road, which our code has determined that right there at that intersection, which is on the Empire State Trail, where pedestrians become invisible to the cars, unfortunately.
Thank you. Time is up.
It's supposed to have a sidewalk. And so we have an opportunity here.
Thank you, Tanya. Before I open it up, because I do know that there's others, council members, can I have a motion to extend the public motion by Michael Tierney, second by Rennie Scott Childress, all in favor to extend the public comment? Opposed? Motion is adopted. We have another 30 minutes for public comment. Come on up. If you could just say your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Emily Taylor, and I live in Ward 5 in Kingston. I'm here to ask you to approve the resolution for a ceasefire. There's not very much that I can say right now that the people up here before me haven't said. I just want to beg each one of you to show up to this moment as human beings. 23,000 people have been killed in Gaza in the last 3 months. Those are human beings like you and me. Those are children like our children. Those are babies like our babies. I've heard people say that Israel has the right to defend themselves. We know what self-defense looks like. It doesn't look like massacring children and infants by the thousands. It doesn't look like dropping bombs on innocent civilians in an area as densely packed as New York City, which they do not have the freedom to leave. It does not look like destroying hospitals. It does not look like stopping food and medicine and water from reaching people who are already living in desperate poverty. This ceasefire has to be immediate and it has to be unconditional. And the reason it needs to be unconditional is because this is a genocide and there can be no conditions under which we can say that genocide is acceptable. There are no conditions in which slaughtering infants and children can be acceptable. Someone came up here earlier tonight and mentioned that the death toll so far is about equal to the population of this city. There is no difference between the people in this city and the people there who are being treated like they're not human beings. I ask you please tonight to see these people as human beings and to stand up and say that this is wrong. If we cannot say that what's happening right now is wrong, I don't know what we can stand up and say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just say your name and record, or name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charlie. I'm a teacher at the Xenia Democratic School, which is a school in the Kingston City School District. Obviously, I speak for myself today. I've been involved in civic education for a long period of time. And over COVID, I was involved in an international civic education Discord server. I am aware of, I want to say that having made friends in schools in Tel Aviv and places, I want to say that because of the digital nature of youth communities nowadays, these kids are not far away from us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers who wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Ann Ames. I live in Kingston. I've been living in Kingston since about '01, so it's been over 20 years. And I am here to urge you good people to accept the resolution for a ceasefire. It's not much for me to say that hasn't already been said. I think it's important for us to make connections with what's going on in Palestine and what's going on here and around the world. I really can't understand how anyone could say and justify killing children because terrorists are standing in front of them or the terrorists are hiding around the children. I will never understand that. And I am sure that that doesn't make sense to you either. And that, I'm making that immediate connection with Monica Goods because December 22nd marks the 3rd year of her murder by Trooper Baldner. And I make an immediate relation to Palestine because when she was stopped that night, when her family was stopped in the car, Trooper Baldner knew that there were children in that car. He knew that there were children in that car. But he decided to pursue the car anyway at high speeds, knowing that there were kids in the car. And to me, that's the same thing that Israel is doing and using as an excuse that they have to kill everybody just to get to Hamas. And it's the same thing that Trooper Baldner did. He had to get a hold of Tristan Goods. And so Monica Goods got sacrificed. And I think that for all the pain that the people in Palestine are going through right now, I think we really need to think about how these people are sleeping at
30
night,
seconds.
how the children are being orphaned. There are children running around with no parents and no relatives, but it's okay because we have to wipe out Hamas. And I'm asking you to really, really think about that and make that make sense. Thank you.
Before I open it up to Zoom again, anybody else here? All right, 1, 2, 3. We have one over here, and then Ruth, to you. Come on up. Name and address, please.
My name is Sam Drake, and I live at 3 Dusty Drive. I'm not actually currently a Kingston resident, but I'm among many people who moved up here at the beginning of the pandemic. While I was closer to Kingston, I learned a lot about how the local population was being affected by people like me who moved up here from the city. Tried to do what I could, but moved again and I'm relocating to the city because I think that's where I'm most effective. But I'm currently extremely appalled to find out that the city of Kingston is spending over $300,000 funding this war instead of investing it in your local community that really needs it right now. And the only reason I can fathom that that would even be an option that people would support is that you believe more in the capitalist structures that we're currently relying on that we know are destroying our planet more than you have faith in your ability to connect and take care of your community and take care of each other. The only way forward is with a ceasefire and with the understanding that we have to, as a species, learn how to take care of our local communities and relate to each other in a different way. Thank you.
Ruth Mandelbaum,
Can
269.
you just put the mic down a little bit? Yeah, there you
Ruth
go.
Mandelbaum, 269 Richmond Parkway, Kingston. I didn't come prepared to speak tonight at all, so I just want to say briefly, I agree with the woman on Zoom who said, I don't even understand why the city of Kingston would get involved in a resolution about international politics. There are so many problems here. That being said, the resolution itself, nobody's really discussed the wording or all these, you know, it's just about a general principle. We all want a ceasefire, we all want peace, but there is not a single line in here that condemns the atrocities of Hamas, not a single line item other than, you know, grieving, not condemning, and putting them right out together with the IDF. I mean, to me, that is a real problem. It's just, I was amazed that so few people were here from, you know, from the larger Jewish community. I think there's just not been a lot of information about this out there. I just found out about this meeting myself, so I don't think a lot of people have had a time to look at this carefully, and that's all. I just don't think it's something the city should be doing.
Bill Cranston. I live up on the top of Main Street, pretty much a lifelong City of Kingston resident. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's brief, and I do apologize. I have kind of two separate things of notes here. Frankly, it was an incredibly tough decision to approach the mic. My personal and humble opinion may not be the most popular in the room at the moment. That said, I'm asking the Common Council to table the Palestinian and Israeli ceasefire. As we are all well aware, the resolution isn't simply asking for a ceasefire. As the woman who just spoke previously, there's a lot more going on in that resolution than simply asking for a ceasefire. I am not diminishing the severity of this historical world event. I am asking the council to focus on issues affecting the taxpayers of the city of Kingston, such as the ongoing opioid crisis on the Midtown Linear Park, which is costing City of Kingston lives, basically on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, some of them children. Let's not imbibe in political hyperbole and divisiveness, which is chokeholding so many of our political arenas today. Let's focus on issues that are affecting us here in Kingston, right here, right now. Thank you very much.
We will get to you folks on Zoom.
Hi, I'm H.E. Hogginess. I live at 24 West Chester Street. Wasn't going to speak, but just wanted to throw out there, there seems to be a sort of like understanding or this trying to pull away and say that this isn't about Kingston, let's focus here, and just want to like pull back to what some other folks said. A lot of money and our money is coming from Kingston and supporting this. It is about Kingston. And that money is powerful. We all know how powerful money is. And that could be doing this, filling in holes in the road, dealing with the opioid epidemic. Like, calling for a ceasefire is calling for caring about Kingston as a small community. They are interconnected in so many ways, and just like allowing yourself, like being like, oh, we got to focus on Kingston, so I can't think about that. That's what I think a lot of us are doing as Americans. Like, oh, it's far away. This has nothing to do with us. It does have a lot to do with us. We are in power right now, and I've been thinking a lot about this quote from Martin Luther King when he says something about, someone here probably knows it better than me, but he said something about how the white moderate is the most dangerous person in America. And I think that we can expand that and, you know, think about just being a moderate in general, and this idea that like, oh, I care, but there's nothing I can really do. And there are things we can do, and it's all interconnected. And taking a stand for a ceasefire, pulling more money back into our community, they're the same thing. And yeah, I support a ceasefire.
All right, we'll go back to Zoom. Next speaker, please.
Jordan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, can you first of all make sure you say your name, full name and address, and just speak up a little bit louder?
Yes. Can you hear me better? My name is Jordan Williams. I live here in Kingston in Ward 3 on Fairmont Avenue. And yeah, I also, like others, wasn't expecting to, share vocally, but I feel moved to, and I'm really grateful for all who have gone before to call for the support of the ceasefire resolution. I'm really uplifted by the Black people, the Black women, the Black elders and femmes who we've heard spoken and who inspire how I always want to show up and move through the world. When I look at what is happening to the Palestinian people and what has been happening to the Palestinian people for 75 years, at least, if not more, it takes me on a journey and thinking about my own experience growing up, existing as a Black and as a queer person. I think back to my childhood and, being raised in a Black Baptist tradition. And while on the outside and today, a lot of people will say that the Black Baptist Church and the Black church reflect specifically and purely Christianity, I know for a fact that the roots of the Black church and Black spirituality are rooted in our African ancestors and in our traditions, in our spirits, and in our practices, and our knowledge and wisdom and skill that we brought with us when we were kidnapped and forced to labor here on these lands. And so these are the folks who I descend from, and folks who knew that if freedom is our right. And what inspired them, in addition to their African ancestors and spirits, were also traditions that came by way of Abrahamic faith traditions, Christianity and Judaism. And when we look at the story of a mass people exiting Egypt and liberating themselves and being liberated, that was a story of inspiration, one that was seeded in my life and in my lineage by Judaism. Fast forward to my high school experience and learning about the atrocity of the Holocaust and wondering how could any person on the planet alive at that moment not do everything in their power, everything they could to stop what was happening, no matter where on earth they were, because we are connected. And then fast forward to my more recent adulthood, learning deep land ethic and land connection, decolonization, the need to rematriate and connect people to lands of their ancestors, understanding these lands of Palestine and Israel as shared ancestral homelands that should not require the genocide or ethnic cleansing, which is what is happening. And so please support this ceasefire, and thank you.
Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Scott Denny.
Scott, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. You got
I
3 minutes,
apologize
Scott.
for that. Good evening. Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, council members. This is a very sensitive issue, obviously. So I'd like to just say that while I do not support the violence between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, I do feel that it was somewhat reckless in a way, having Alderwoman Hirsch bring this to the Common Council floor. It has been clear that the residents of the city of Kingston are and have been somewhat divided for some time. This should be left to be a personal matter within oneself, and we as a community should not pass a resolution that will potentially create a bigger divide in our community. I would ask the council not to pass this resolution, as it clearly is taking a side against an entire Jewish community, potentially within the city of Kingston. Whether a person in our community does or does not support Israel is not relevant. However, the council should not pass any resolution on this matter, as it will be speaking for every resident and every one of your constituents. That is not the council's place to do this. This is actually somewhat of a religious matter. We're treading on very dangerous waters here, and I would urge the council to, at the very least, to table this and not move forward with this evening. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else before we close public speaking? Come on up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, just name and address.
My name is Barbara Cohen. I'm in Rennie's Ward. I have the privilege of being in Rennie's Ward on Pearl Street. If there is a ceasefire, we're still going to be left with two terrorist organizations in Gaza, Hezbollah and Hamas. They're not going away. So if there's a ceasefire tomorrow, they're still going to be there. They have no regard for their residents, and especially women. Their goal is the annihilation of Jews, and we've had many Jews speak tonight. If they're not going away. So if there is a ceasefire, we should just think who is still going to be running Gaza. Israel definitely has their problems, but it is the only democracy in the Middle East. Gaza is not a democracy, unfortunately, because of who's running it. And they hide in the hospitals and everything else that we've named, that has been named. And unfortunately, the reason people are being killed is because Hamas is hiding they're hiding in tunnels. There is evidence that there are tunnels underneath the hospitals. And so anytime, unfortunately, there is a bomb or a rocket, the people are getting killed because Hamas is not protecting them. And this land was given to them years ago. And what did they do with it? They didn't take care of it. They built mega mansions for themselves. They have no regard. So just again, if there is a ceasefire tomorrow, think of who's going to be running Gaza. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Council. My name's Maria Bella Rivera Tadero. I live on Rousner Lane on the border of New Paltz and Kingston. And I would just like to say that when I think of Gaza right now, I think of the Three Kings Day that just passed, of the three kings coming, being guided by the North Star, being guided by the angel to come and greet baby Jesus and declare him King of the Jews in Bethlehem in a manger, where he and his family were kept from having a house, having a home. I think of the babies that are there now, starving, trapped. I think of the families who do not support Hamas. I think of the liberated Palestinians having their land, having their food, having their lives taken away from them. I think of the United States being implicit in the destruction of the Middle East and the
creation of the state of Israel as a way to get towards capitalist means. These are oil-rich lands. These are places that benefit our Western interests because we do not care, our government does not care about the land, which has been proven time and time and again by the ways that we have treated Native people of many different lands, not even on North American land, but that in South America and Africa, all over the world. I think of all of the people who need food, who need water, who need shelter, who are looking for medical care, who are in those hospitals because they are sick and dying, and the small few who believe that peace should be found through violence. And I know that through my own Jewish friends that, you know, they don't support. There's a large Jewish community that does not support what Israel is doing currently. They don't believe that it should exist as a state. They see right through the facade and the lies that are being sold to them. And I think it's ridiculous that people can support, you know, a state that doesn't allow for an infrastructure. You talk of infrastructure, we need food, we need, you know, free food supplied and people in there and peace. But we stand with people who are not from
30
that
seconds.
land. You stand with people who are not from that land by not signing this ceasefire resolution. And if you truly, truly care about the land, about the people, about the olive trees, about the orange trees, about the sky, about the birds, about the kids, then you sign this ceasefire resolution. Thank you for your time tonight.
Hi, my name's Carl. I live at 62 Down Street. When I was a kid, I came home and I watched the news, and every day I was told that America was doing great things in Iraq and protecting my freedom. And this was a war built on falsified intelligence. Now, some of the intelligence that has come out of Israel has proven to be falsified, and I urge you to take your time and read through the claims of genocide compiled by South Africa that they brought to the Hague. This will maybe convince you of this, and I ask you to consider a world in which we had denied funding the war in Iraq and what that money could have saved us and have gone to our communities at a time during the financial crisis when we allowed bankers to totally, you know, stop this country financially. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, I'm trying to bring it back to why this symbolic gesture is important. It encourages other communities and municipalities to do the same and to stand up for this ceasefire resolution. It'll create ripples through the American country if we get some media attention built around it, which is strategically turned away from this current conflict and the organized protestings that happen all over the country. Anyways, it's a very small gesture, I know. I know we've spent so much time here together mumbling into the mic for this, but it is very important that we just make this tiny effort and then we can move on to everything else we care about. Yes, it's a small gesture. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we will close the public speaking portion. Just because a couple people has said voting on this tonight, there is nothing on the council agenda tonight to vote on this. I will take a brief 5 minutes, meaning 4.5 minutes recess. You are more than welcome to stick around and listen to the rest of our governmental proceedings, but you are also more than welcome to leave. If you do, obviously you could hear it's very loud in the stairs, so after 5 minutes, if there could be no talking downstairs too, we'd appreciate that. So council members, if you could be in your seats in 4.5 minutes. Thank you everybody for coming out. Council members, if you could make your way back. That was 5.5 minutes. Council members, if you could make your way back. There she is. I'm going to call the meeting back into order. Thank you very much. Should be coming any minute, right? All right, we now enter into claims and communications. Hearing no discussion, they will be on file in the clerk's office. Can I get a motion to dispense with the second reading of the general bills and pay? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Bob Dennison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. We're now entering into the report of committees, starting with resolution number 8.
Resolution 8 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a total of $12,146.35 in the city clerk's budget to balance accounts.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. If we could have quiet in the stairwell, please. Thank you. Thank you. Moving to resolution number 9, please.
Resolution 9 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the transfer of $763.69 in the building safety budget to balance accounts.
On the question, Alderwoman Jeannie Edwards.
I recuse myself from this due to employment.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 7-0. Recusal by Alderwoman Jeannie Edwards. Moving to resolution number 10, please.
Resolution 10 of 2024, ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, adopting the fee schedule for the year 2024 as set forth by the Finance and Audit Committee as per attached.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 11, please.
Resolution 11 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, adopting the Climate Action Plan 2030.
On the question, Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to amend the title of this resolution on the floor to read Resolution of the Common Council of the City of New York adopting the Pedestrian and Bicycle Master Plan.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Bob Dennison. Yeah, I'll have Elisa restate it all. Yep. So there is a motion and a second to change the Climate Action Plan to Pedestrian and Bicycle Plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The change has been adopted 8-0. Can you reread it, please?
Resolution 11 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, adopting the Kingston Pedestrian and Bicycle Master Plan.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 12, please.
Resolution 12 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending approval for adding water department charges to the 2024 property tax bills.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 13, please.
Resolution 13 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, adopting the updated procurement policy as amended.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 14, please.
Resolution 14 of 2024, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic of the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, adding handicap parking on Franklin Street.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 15, please.
Resolution 15 of 2024, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, adding handicap parking on Linderman Avenue.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to the second reading and vote of local law number 7.
Local Law 7 of 2023, Local Law of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Local Law 4 of 1992.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Local law is adopted 8-0. Moving to local law number 8.
Local Law 8 of 2023 of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Section 390.80, immobilization and impounding of vehicles.
On the question, Alderman Michael Tierney.
I'd like to make a motion that we refer this back to committee.
There's a motion on the floor, second by Rennie Scott Childress. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote to send this back to committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is sent back to committee by a vote of 8-0. That concludes our resolutions for the evening. Before we adjourn, and before I open it up to you, I would like to close our meeting in memory of Jerry Schatzel. Jerry served over 20 years with Kingston Police Department, retiring as a detective in 2011. He then served as an investigator for the Ulster County District Attorney. He was also one of my husband's close friends, sharing the same passion for flying helicopters, and I got to know him through that, and I think he even flew me a couple of times in the helicopter. He was a great man, and he was too young and will be deeply missed, so my condolences to fellow officers here today, too. It's a great loss. I would also like to close in memory of Jack Noble, one of the young the kids who was killed yesterday in the car accident. There hasn't been a lot of information out about him, but I think it would be remiss for us not to say a few words about Jack. I talked to a couple of high schoolers today, actually, who knew him and had nothing but great things to say. And then, of course, I would like to close in memory of Dylan Gogi, who, again, the same thing. After talking with some of the high school students, absolutely great things to say about both of those boys. So our sincerest condolences to both of the families. Does anybody else have Alderman Rennie Scott Childress?
I'd like to close the meeting in honor of Mildred Buzzy McCormick. Used to live over on the corner of Main Street in Johnston. She was born in Auburn, New York, went to Dannemora High School. After living in New York City for a while, becoming a nurse, she moved to Walden, New York, where she learned to fly a Piper Cub single-engine plane. While working as a nurse, she met Richard McCormick, who was a longtime PE teacher and coach at the high school. They married in 1950 and were married for 73 years. She continued her education, became a nurse here in the Kingston High School, in the Kingston schools, rather. And in addition to all of that work, she was a devoted parishioner at St. Joseph's Church. She also volunteered and helped to plan activities at the Hudson Valley Senior Residence until she was 94. It's not that long ago. She and Richard were fabulous people in terms of helping people in crisis or transition from various kinds of problems and issues that they faced in their lives. They were a real rock in the community, and she will be sorely missed.
Thank you. Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to close in memory of a very old friend of mine. Not that he's very old, he's the same age as me, so we'll leave it at that. But longtime friend, we graduated high school together, we played Little League together. We used to hang out a lot in high school. Ed Bosch is his name. He was born and raised in Kingston. Ed didn't follow the norms that most of us did. Back in the 80s, Ed took off to pursue a career in gambling, which he did until his health failed a couple of years ago. He was currently living in Las Vegas. Good guy, always laughing. He was a good guy to have around. I just reconnected with him on Facebook recently. I hadn't seen him in years and years. So we got a chance to catch up, but I guess I will not be seeing him. He leaves behind 2 sisters in the area, a longtime companion, and that's it. I was looking forward to meeting up with Ed again. That's it.
Thank you, Charles. Is anyone else? Hearing no one else, I will take a motion to adjourn. A motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Steve Shabbat. All in favor to adjourn? Opposed? We hereby stand adjourned until the next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, February 6, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you very much.